the leaders in the conversation, but rather they are there to learn from the hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of women all over the world who have carried the weight of gender violence. And I don't mean carried the weight in their everyday lives. I mean to the point where the only reason that we come together in public space to talk about gender violence is because women have been beaten, women have been abused, and women have been murdered. And to me, that means that we start from a place of humility. And for gentlemen in particular who come from that space of having access to gender privilege, I absolutely, without question, need to feel that humility as a survivor of gender violence, because I need to know that menfolk aren't arriving to the conversation with, we have the answer, we know, women, what you need, and we will deliver it. That's not a critical approach. That's not an approach rooted in feminism. That's not an approach rooted in empowerment. What I need is for menfolk to come to the table and say, there's a problem. And we too hurt because of the problem, and we care about the problem, but we need to know how to care. We need to know, as people in positions of privilege, what it is that women need from us to shift this movement forward. You know, and I think of it in the context of marginalized identity groups, whether we're talking about people with disabilities or people of color or women, members of marginalized identity groups. They need members of privileged identity groups to come to the table, because members of privileged identity groups have the power, and they are oftentimes the gatekeepers. So as a female, from my critical standpoint, I need men to be involved, but I need men to be involved who are willing to listen. I need them to be patient in the process. I need them to be humble, and I need them to be transparent. And all of that needs to come with an element of trust. There are things as a woman of color that I experience in this world that men and white folks and white men can never understand. And there will be times when I share experiences or share a perspective, and perhaps the gut reaction is to say, well, that can't possibly be true. And I understand that gut reaction, because around my own privileged identities, for example, being heterosexual, there are times when I have that gut privileged reaction of, there can't possibly be anything going on in the world that I don't understand already. But at the same time, I really need men to come to this space willing to accept that there are realities in the world that they can never know. And that is hard for people around their privileged identities to do, to imagine that there is something that they might not know about how the world works. So for me, the listening, the humility, the sense of trust, and the gut understanding that perhaps we will talk about things that are very hard to talk about, and yet you really will just need to listen.